Hello, friends. This is Jeremy. Remember that Days of Future Cast and all of the podcasts on the Duckfeed.tv network are supported by Patreon. That's patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Go check it out and donate a couple of dollars for access to cool, excellent things like early episodes, exclusive episodes, cool discounts, and just like a whole lot more stuff that I haven't even looked at recently, so I'm having trouble remembering. That's patreon.com/DuckFeedTV.
New Wolverine. How intolerant I can be.
Not a good idea!
How intolerant
Not a good idea!
I can be.
Not a good idea!
How intolerant
Not a good idea!
I can be.
Not a good idea!
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast, the podcast where me and Gary confessed our crush on bearded Magneto while watching the X-Men animated series. How are you today, Gary? Things are good?
I'm doing well.
You doing well?
Doing okay. Yeah. Just hanging out. It's a crisp autumn day.
Is it?
In Portland? Yeah. It
It's
is here.
so hot here. It's so
Really?
oh my God. It's like 90 degrees outside right now. It's ridiculous.
no.
Autumn
Don't
drove 4 hours north and texted me. She says it's 51 degrees right now, and I'm freaking out. I don't have any clothes for this because it's just hot all the time down here. We don't get seasons anymore.
Man.
Yeah,
Well, that sucks.
It does.
Sorry you bought
Thanks.
a house on the sun.
Thanks. I
Yeah.
did. Yeah. And if the weather keeps up, it's going to be on the coast as well because the bottom half of Louisiana is just going to keep falling off into the ocean.
That's
my
true.
my hope is that I can sell this as beachfront property and get way more money back out of it than I put in.
At the very last minute.
Yeah, I can just move.
Wait. So,
We've been watching this show called Grand Designs. Have you heard of this show?
mm-mm.
It's
No.
It's a show based in England where these people build just the most ridiculous houses ever. And but it's not like incredibly rich people. It's just people with absurd amounts of money that are wasting it on this house. And one of them was a couple that wanted to live like on the water. So they went up to like this place and there's no houses on any of this property because it's literally falling into the ocean at rates of like in the next 60 years. They think they're going to get 60 years out of this house. They're spending like $400,000 building. Wow. And during the building, like a storm comes through and knocks off like 10 years worth in one go. And they're like, and I'm like, and the house is beautiful. Like the house is absolutely gorgeous. Like it's got this great design and like all of this architectural blah, blah, blah. Like, and it's a really nice looking house and looks very livable and it's going to last for maybe 50 years if they can't figure out a way to stop it from falling into the ocean.
Yeah.
Extremely ridiculous.
That is a bummer. I don't know what to. It's a weird. I thought about this before, and I can't remember if I brought this up on a show or something. But it's kind of strange how. And it's not strange. I'm sure this information's out there. I just am ignorant and don't know it. But how we get suburbs, like there are new suburbs that will crop up in our lifetime. Like my hometown is slowly turning into a suburb of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
But there aren't like new cities. Like nobody, like there's just not the money and the kind of venture capitalism, where people make new cities. But it feels like, given how many cities are on the coast, with this idea of, encroaching waters and climate change and such, that like it would make sense to like start
build a city.
Pick some, some area in, the huge, just kind of empty middle part of this country. And like, I understand it's not easy. It's expensive. There's tons of infrastructure, but like, it just seems like that would make sense to me in a weird way. It would take so much money that no one's going to put up that money, but it's just kind of a strange thing that we don't have that anymore. Like it used to be like there could be a new city and now that's not the case.
Yeah. It's also weird because like population dictates a lot of those labels. Because I've since I've been working in South Louisiana and I worked with a lot of public utilities and like knowing the difference between a village and a town and a city. Like I've seen like towns down here become towns and then become cities as like specifically during hurricanes where a lot of like large amounts of population will move out of New Orleans and the surrounding areas. Like those areas grow up and become like way more cities, but like especially down here where we don't really do anything with infrastructure because we're all idiots that depend on oil money. It just gets so overpopulated so quickly, like it's ridiculous. Covington, the town or city of Covington, it used to be town of, is like that, where it's a beautiful place, and like I remember it as being kind of a smaller town, full of trees and like on the water and really really pretty and nice, and now it's just like filled to the brim of people with large amounts of like chain shops, but no actual like city infrastructure, right? Like nobody's building high rises or anything like that. Like it's none of that exists, which is really strange to me. It's not really strange. Like I'm sure that shit's expensive and you probably don't get much of a return on it. Like there's just, especially in Louisiana, there's just not a lot of like tall buildings that you would consider like a cityscape.
Yeah, I guess I should clarify that, like, villages will be and towns will grow up to become cities by like definition, but not cities in a traditional sense. Like Los Angeles is a city, or Portland is a city, or Seattle's a city. Like, like they're no more kind of like, we have those kind of dense urban major metropolitan areas, and I don't think we've seen one of those kind of come about.
I'm curious if people are still like founding cities, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like every once in a while you'll see one of those like unusual news stories where a town will be for sale.
Yeah.
Like you could like buy a town, like a town selling itself. You could own that town. And then I just think like, well, if that's happening, like it just feels like there's got to be some kind of movement on that, and I just don't know. But instead, like the wealth disparity is such that unless they want to do that, if there's no money in it, none of these people are going to do it. So that's why you should make me one of the richest people in America, and I will just found a city.
You can build a city, yeah. I'm in a Wikipedia article, which is a like a list of cities, planned cities by country. And according to this Wikipedia article, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 planned but unbuilt cities just in California.
Wow.
So that's really weird. There's also a list of secret cities built as part of the Manhattan Project, which is just a really weird sentence to see on like a Wikipedia article. Secret cities.
Yeah, that's a cool. That's great. Like that is a cool Wikipedia dive.
Yeah,
for
this
sure.
This is good. I'll put this in the show notes.
Yeah, just because it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
If it does seem like we're stalling, we're not. We're covering 2 episodes today, One Man's Worth, Part 1 and 2, which I think are cool episodes, but the issue being the second episode, not a whole lot happens. The first episode is very dense with cool shit. The second episode goes by pretty quick because there's like not a whole lot to it.
Well, and they this is a time travel episode, so they spend some time like Bill and Tedding their way through. So just by the nature of time travel stuff, like you get a lot of the stuff that we saw in episode 1 in the second episode, just from a minorly different point of view it's not very significant sometimes. It's it's good. I like it. I like a lot of this. Like the mutant stuff is really really great. Like this whole alternate timeline where Wolverine and Storm are hooking up is very very good. Wolverine is the star of the show in my mind. Like he's so great in this episode just throughout. He wants to kick a racist ass. Like that's great.
Yeah,
that's really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is by nature going to be, I think, a little bit shorter, just because, as we see the same thing happening over and over again, we can't really like, okay, and this is the second time that they come through the diner and do the thing. So
yeah, we're gonna get into it here. We'll start off with One Man's Worth, Part 1. Bishop and Shard recruit Wolverine and Storm for a time travel mission to save Professor Xavier's life. Except they're the Wolverine and Storm from a parallel timeline where Xavier died before founding the X-Men, a world where humans and mutants are in constant war with one another. Not only do the pair of mutants lack the connection to him, but correcting history may put an end to their marriage. That's pretty accurate.
Yeah, this is all good.
Yeah.
This is going to start in May 11th, 1959. They do the smart thing of putting their ending first. We see Bishop, Wolverine, and Storm. And I don't think Shard is here at this point, but I could be wrong. But they're all wearing...
Shard could just be like... And people who are asking if you're like, who's Shard? That's a good question. They don't really explain it in this episode. This is one of those things where I had to be like, I know who these characters are because I have the comics knowledge. But for somebody who didn't know who this was, they'd probably like, who the fuck is Shard? It's like almost like they just made Bishop a girlfriend that like just like dresses like Bishop. Like it's almost like that weird thing where they had Mrs. Sinister and like Girl Actus and when Marvel was kind of changing everyone into girls. But Shard is Bishop's sister. and is from like a pretty shitty period of the comics, like 1995 to 1998. There's a whole lot of Shard going on. She is not particularly good.
She actually, Bishop actually spells that out in this episode, because I think the second
this
episode.
One, or I thought it was when she died. Yeah,
yeah,
in the
yeah.
second, so,
She
but
dies,
I mean,
yeah.
you go through a lot of episodes. Like she's introduced, and you don't find out who she is for a very long time.
Yeah, I just assumed.
I guess the weird part.
Almost every time we've seen Bishop, we've seen like someone running around with Bishop that it is not explained at all, but it's just like future mutant that is into Bishop stuff. Like that's pretty much what she is. So yeah, they're fighting Nimrod. Nimrod is the robot sentinel from the future that can kill everything and come back to life and all that other stuff. When a Professor Xavier, and this is dated very specifically for some reason, May 11th, 1959.
Yep.
But Xavier is walking through a door and he sets off a bomb and dies. And then we go all the way to the future in 2055 with Forge detecting like some sort of time manipulation. So he sends Bishop and Shard back to the present day to fix this, essentially. Except by the time that Bishop and Shard get to the present day, the change in the past, Xavier dying, has caught up with the present day and changed it dramatically. And this is kind of a cool scene where, for whatever reason, Xavier, Wolverine, and Storm are all going on a picnic at the mansion, and there's this weird flirtation thing and like for some reason an incredibly hairy Wolverine is hanging out in a tree, and Storm is making weird comments about like the Garden of Eden and like the apple of the evil apple or whatever. When like there's this huge disturbance. Professor Xavier's wheelchair, by the way, like helpfully says temporal disturbance. Like, thank you, wheelchair. Really appreciate that. The sky is pink. The sky is pink and flashing. This is I know it's a goddamn disturbance. Chairbot.
Yep. Chairbot is MVP of this episode. The Wolverine gets to make this joke, and I think he makes it twice. Because again, everything happens twice in this episode where he's like, "Why can't we just deal with ants? Like a normal picnic."
Yeah.
But then we pop again, because this temporal disturbance changes things, and we're essentially in the Age of Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't say that Apocalypse is not part of it, but the premise of Age of Apocalypse, for people who have not don't know that comic, is that Xavier dies. Essentially, like a world without Xavier is this. We have tons of totalitarian horror shows in the future of the X-Men. This is one of them. Here it's just portrayed as humans versus mutants instead of like Apocalypse's weird survival of the fittest. But we have a lot of things that are kind of part and parcel of Age of Apocalypse. Most notably that Magneto is leading the X-Men. And this is a very long, extremely cool fight scene with a lot of cameos, which is, people who listen to the show know that we are here for.
Yes, 100%. And just talk about Magneto's design here, like this full beard, like war outfit, like going toe to toe with giant fucking robots, and it's so great, Gary. Like I love all of this stuff. Even Beast Age of Apocalypse outfit is dope as hell. Like he's got like kind of like a robot thing. He's got some Wolverine claws going. He's got like the whole 90s like we have to have a belt for our belts situation. Like all of that stuff but it really works. Like the designs are really, really great in this.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And his like bearded Magneto, he's got the helmet on as well, and he looks like a fucking Viking.
Yeah, it's great.
He looks super tough. There's tons of weird, characters here. So we end up with Mimic is running around, who was like one of the early X-Men from the 60s, like in his old outfit. We have Age of Apocalypse Nightcrawler going through and doing things like it is just like tons of, again, call me simple for enjoying these cameos and stuff, but tons of them. All these Age of Apocalypse versions. It's not Age of Apocalypse Wolverine, which very specifically is missing a hand, but it is. We see Age of Apocalypse Sabretooth with Wild Child. That little miniature Sabretooth, Tiny Tusk, and you get Tiny Tusk and Tusk versus Sabretooth.
I love the fact that by the way that you said Wild Child, I could tell it was spelled. Both of them are spelled with Y's. Like I could just tell by the way that you said it.
Wild Child. So again, huge fight, very, very cool. And Magneto is not doing super well. He's trying to save Mimic.
Mm-hmm.
And is about to be squished. Future Storm and Future Wolverine, like Wolverine's like, I gotta go save him. All this fighting, is happening. Mr. Sinister shows up. These robots they're fighting are not Sentinels. And then they send in the superhumans, which these are like the evil Avengers. Like these are all Avengers power guys. There's like an evil Captain America. It's like the humans took the DNA of the Avengers and put them into regular super soldiers. Mm-hmm. So we get like a Captain America, a Goliath, a Thor, and one other one I can't remember. But like, there's already an Iron Man. We've already seen like
flying around.
Oh yeah, yeah, Wasp, and we've already seen like evil Iron Man flying around. Like, fucking A, what's going on?
Yeah, this is all great.
I love that this just throws you into the deep end. It's just like, whoa, the government has created a bunch of Captain Americas for us to fight. Like, for the X-Men to fight. Like, this is great. This is the race war that the X-Men has always threatened. This is the humans versus mutants, thing. But the humans are not just Sentinels and like army men. It's like, oh, the superhumans are at it too.
Yeah,
it's
this is
neat.
so fun. Yeah, this is so good, and because it's everybody using their powers too. Like it's just all, and it's all bonkers. Like all of the human and robot stuff is just so weird and out there and outlandish, and it's like all of it really works for me. Whereas stuff like the anything in space, like the weird designs they do there, doesn't really work for me at all. But like, for some reason, these big clunky, almost humanoid robots just really like they, especially when they start getting tore up by mutants. Like I'm into it. You got me hooked from the beginning.
Yeah, I like time travel stuff. One thing I was thinking about when we did the last episode, and the last episode was long enough, so I didn't bring it out, but the X-Men are really weirdly, at least in cartoon and adaptation form, really kind of dependent on what their antagonist is, right? Like the X-Men, if they have room to grow, if it's about like human, mutant right issues, things like that, time travel, I think works really well for them. Apocalypse really works pretty well as an X-Men villain because of his kind of theming, and that makes the X-Men shine. And then like space and Savage Land and Psychic Plane, like just work less, so they're very defined by what they're set up against. It feels like. Sure.
And this feels like a really good, even though this isn't, I mean, it's an X-Man story, but it's much more about Xavier than it is anything else. And it's all about the absence of the X-Men because without that presence, like obviously that's what causes this war. But it's much more focused on just Wolverine and Storm, and I think like kind of scaling it down to just those two primary characters and what they care about, works for this episode a lot because there's just so much crazy shit happening. Not to say that we still get some stuff with Bishop and with like all of these other side characters we're about to be introduced to, but it really seems focused on Storm and Wolverine in a way that they don't often do with the X-Men, and it's just. Like especially in a all hands on deck, like we have to go we have to go fix the timeline kind of stuff. Like normally you don't get these moments for character development, and there's some really good stuff in here with Wolverine, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, I like it a lot too. And we're gonna get that intersection, with the X-Men as a metaphor for civil rights stuff. It kind of exists instead of, right? So like. You have bigger fish to fry. There are mutants, so the things with like kind of like racial or sexual orientation stuff just kind of acts like it doesn't exist. Like they've done some token stories where like North Star gets kind of bashed because he's gay, that kind of thing. But for the most part, like they one exist instead of the other. Like the mutant metaphor supersedes the civil rights metaphor, which is part of the reason why like people who don't go in on that or who criticize it, that's one of the reasons. Is it's just like, well. You're making a comparison of having like super cool superpowers to like actually, making 70 cents on the dollar. Like that's not a very good, that's not a good trade. So this actually deals with like having both in the world too, just this set of episodes. So not only is it that good Wolverine character development, but yeah, super, super cool. So, the gigantic fight, Wolverine is very good in it. Bishop and Shard show up.
Yeah. They have gone back in time, and they like find Wolverine and Storm, and basically lay this time travel pitch on them. Which, like, they're in the midst of this battlefield, right? Like, there's all kinds of craziness going on. They're in kind of a med bay, is where they find Wolverine and Storm, and
because Gambit got fucked up.
Gambit got fucked up. That's
the only thing he does during this whole recession is get shot.
He got shot once. But they pitched this time travel stuff, and like Wolverine and Storm are both like, this doesn't sound right at all. Like, who is Xavier? What's an X-Man? Like, how do you know who we are? That kind of thing. And it's just the craziness of like, I need to go find you in the middle of a battlefield, where you're fighting for your lives and your kind, and like convince you to go back in time for a few hours with me. Like that's a crazy. I love like having to convince people of time travel stuff. Like that's some of my favorite stuff in the world.
Yeah, it makes me think of like it's not the exact situation, but we're in a terrible hellscape right now, and just imagine like you and I are recording this, and then Bishop and Shard show up in our apartments. Or in our house, and it's just like, hey, we could have 2017 is a mistake. We can help you avoid it. Will you go back in time and like destroy it? And it's like, oh well, shit, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do it.
Who do we have to kill for Bernie to win? What do we have to do?
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, they eventually do convince Wolverine and Storm of what's going on, but it takes some time, and like they have to like fight their way through some of this. At one point, they just like kind of run as a giant robot is coming by, and there's this weird shot where, as they're running under this giant robot, it shows it from like the middle of the robot's chest down, where there's like a gangway, and there's another tinier robot that like looks down and notices them. Yeah, it's Tiny Tusk all over again. But this tiny robot looks down and like it's like, oh, there's some X-Men down there. I'm gonna shoot them. I just like the fact that there's robots inside of other robots. It's extremely good. But they finally like go like hide out in this building so that they can finally convince Wolverine and Storm to do this, and Wolverine immediately catches on to the fact of like, hey, if this happens, like we probably won't be married. And Storm says something like, "Are you willing to lose a whole world of people just to keep me?" And he's like, "Yeah, absolutely, I'm ready. Let's do it."
Yeah.
Which,
of course I am. Like she has to convince him every step of the way, because it makes like the kind of thematic strength here is like the world is super super terrible, and this is like the one good thing he has in his life, and he's holding on to it much harder than you would hold on, if things were better, right? Like that's what they're trying to get at, is that like he's holding on to this one thing, this marriage, this love, because the world is so shitty. It's like he doesn't want to give it up, but he has to be like kind of dragged along.
Mm-hmm. And I like this because the only like romantic stuff we've seen with Wolverine is mostly with Jean, which is especially in the movies comes off as completely inappropriate, but in the comic books in the cartoon comes off a little bit better, but still not great. And then like weird dead exes that have been cybernetically enhanced to have long claws and be super annoying, right? Like that's the only kind of exit. So it's nice to see Wolverine in this romantic situation where it makes sense, like the fact that these two characters would be together, and also is totally appropriate and cool, and for him to be way into her, like that's great. I really like that.
And the comics have hinted at this in various ways from time to time, like this thing, but this is as explicit as it's become. I feel like.
So they go. There's a moment here where I think Bishop refers to Wolverine as like
the new Wolverine is as dense as the old one.
I like the fact that no matter what timeline, Wolverine just kind of hates Bishop on sight. Like no matter what world we live in, he's just like, fuck this guy.
The downside is I think they changed Bishop's voice actor.
It definitely sounds that way.
And that bums me out. He's not quite as like bombastic, and like his accent is really.
They also have. They've also stopped putting the harmonica noise in every time that he talks, which is
he no longer has his musical cues. Yeah. So we kind of find out what actually happened here. We get this little scene with the Sentinel, and we find out the Sentinel sent back a character named Trevor Fitzroy to go kill Nimrod. Fitzroy was a big deal in the comics again. He's one of the Upstarts, which is a series of characters that worked with the Game Master. There's a whole thing in the mid-90s, but essentially he is a time traveler, and the way that his mutant power works in the cartoon, they kind of defang it a little bit, because he just knocks somebody out. He like drains some of their life force to travel through time. In the comics, I'm pretty sure people die. I think he has to kill somebody to jump through time.
Jeez.
He's got a weird little guy with him named Bantam, who is a little like chubby butler that he has, that his power is to like aim him at the right time. So he just has a little comic sidekick. And Master Mold says, or the Sentinels say like, hey, we're not going to trust you. If you do this, like you're going to be the most powerful mutant alive. He's like, well, I'll be the only mutant alive. And they're like, that's right. Like you got it. But we also don't trust you to do that yourself. So we're going to send back Nimrod as well.
Yep.
Yep.
There's a really great moment here where Master Mold brings a mutant up for Fitzroy to get charged up, And Fitzroy,
Yeah.
drains him and like creates the portal and says like he'll be right in a couple of days. And Master Mold just says whatever.
Yeah, I love that. Whatever.
just don't care at all. Like what if you want? Do you need two? Do you need two mutants? Like we can give you two. No big deal.
Classic Sentinel dialogue.
Classic Sentinels. We go back to our heroes who go back in time to 1959, where Charles is having like a conversation with somebody named Professor Gray. And I'm only calling that out
Jean
because
Grey's
like,
dad,
that just seems
presumably.
Yeah, that just seems really weird. Or just like odd in the I don't know, like maybe the comics go like real deep into Jean Grey's like biology. I know there's a sister at some point, but I don't. Yeah, it's just weird to see him showing up now. But he's basically like doing the opposite of what Charles Xavier normally does, and he's actually saying like, no, I don't think like mutants are going to be possible at all. And then Bishop shows up and just like yells crazy shit at Xavier immediately. Like there's no like, hey, how are you? I'm Bishop. You're not going to know me and this is going to sound weird. He just shows up and is like, we need to protect you from the time traveling killers. You're in danger. Like it's just.
But he does say, hey, you're wrong. Like one generation, mutations are possible. Like he answers the conversation. And then says, so while Xavier is like, then he goes, and I'm a time traveler sent to do this. It is like so much. And again, and just people, acting, reasonably in this. He's like, yeah, I don't believe you. And then he's like, well, read my mind. Like this is actually, this thing where people are, responding reasonably. And this is where Xavier says like, oh, I don't really like to use my mind reading powers unless, unless I have to. And so that makes that whole conversation he was having with Professor Gray, like he's faking it. He's putting on a show that he doesn't believe because he doesn't want mutants to get out. Yeah. He doesn't want that to become a popular conception. But he does read their mind and is like semi-convinced at this point. They're going to talk it out. They go to this like jazz club. And everyone's still dressed like themselves, right? So like,
sure. Yeah.
Bishop is dressed like Bishop. Shard is dressed like Shard. Fucking post-apocalyptic Age of Apocalypse Wolverine and Storm are still hanging out as well. It's bonkers. But Wolverine and Storm keep holding hands because they love each other. And then that's what the bartender gets pissed off about.
Yep. It's bad enough I have to serve you freaks at the college, but I'm not going to have their kind in here. And gestures
and
towards
Storm
Bishop and Storm. I love Storm's line about it. Is this race? Is this racism? Like this is almost quaint.
Is this skin based racism? And it's not just Bishop and Storm being there. It's Wolverine and Storm holding hands. It's the miscegenation that he doesn't like. Super crazy. And they're just like, and Wolverine's not going to have that shit. He's just like, yeah, you just threatened the woman I love, like get fucked. And the guy has like a shotgun. He doesn't care about, Bishop's gun the size of a person that he's brought in or any of this stuff. Like that's clearly from the future. He just cares about this racism. So he's like, Crusher, low blow. Like show him what's up.
No, dude, it's Moose and Rocco. I love these names, dude. Like these are just straight up like porn star names at this point. Like this is just crazy.
Yeah, Moose Cockington and Rocco Siffredi or whatever.
Cockington of the Miami Cockingtons, of course.
Yeah. The Miami Cockingtons actually became the Miami Dolphins. Like it was a thing. It was an offensive name, but
that's why New Orleans doesn't have a basketball team, and it's the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, it used to be the New Orleans Clits, and they decided to change it because some people thought it was offensive.
Some people.
They come over and they do a fight where it's like here's 4 future mutants who have enough ordnance to like level the army versus like 2 Dick Tracy villains who come over.
Yeah, and Wolverine pretty handily just basically takes care of these 2 porn star bouncer guys, and he has a great line in here.
Now, you can either apologize or I'm gonna show you how intolerant I can be.
Like that's just, I love fucking Wolverine being like the surprise SJW in the X-Men animated series. It's like one of my favorite things ever. But Storm is actually really disappointed in all of this because he's done it again. He's let his temper get in the way of what he was actually supposed to do. And because in the middle of all of this, Xavier has jetted out. Like they've lost Xavier.
Yeah. Yeah, which is like the one thing they're not supposed to do. Like Storm even says like, "Hey, protect Xavier." He goes, "Okay," and then he just gets into a bunch of fights and doesn't.
Did we talk about them letting Xavier read their minds in order to confirm that all of this crazy shit is actually real?
We said it. Yeah, we said it was going to happen.
Okay.
It happens in the cafe, not before the cafe.
So Xavier knows this is real, and he leaves. And when they try to find him, Storm runs across somebody that looks like Xavier, but turns out to just be Nimrod in disguise. Which I don't know why he was in a disguise, because he just literally turns into Nimrod, and there's a big fight. Like that's what happens. And they manage to they do a pretty good job of taking down Nimrod. But of course, Nimrod, every time you blow him up, he kind of learns, and then he can just reassemble himself again. But during that fight, as they took out Nimrod, they realize that Fitzroy has set up this bomb, and it goes off. And we're right back to the very beginning of the episode where we saw Xavier walk through the door and trigger the electronic fuse or whatever that's
like a
Wolverine
bomb.
and explodes, and Logan dies. Nope, sorry, Xavier dies.
Yeah, yeah, and we can't get through this part without talking about how it's in slow motion.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
this is insane. Like we get this close up, and I thought there was something wrong with my VLC player because he does a slow close up push in on Wolverine, and he goes no, and then switches over to Bishop doing that. Like the last 45 seconds of the episode are in slow motion and with voices. Super amazing. It's amazing stuff.
It's really, really funny. And the episode ends with a to be continued. Are your rips? Because I'm using mostly my own rips. Like I've got the DVDs and I'm just ripping. But for this one, for some reason, I guess I downloaded it at some point, put it on my server because it's got like an end of episode preview. And the preview for it is for an episode of where Gambit goes back to Louisiana, where we have the whole marriage thing. And I'm like, was it really this out of order sequence? Like it's part 1. You have a part 2. Like what? I know that episode names can be confusing, but seriously, like this seems weird.
Not to harp too much on the slow-mo thing, but I went to verify. So I found like a YouTube shitty rip where it's all pitch shifted and in a tiny window just to make sure that does the slowdown. And it is for it's a 22-minute cartoon that includes opening credits and end credits. So it's probably about 20 minutes, fully 45 seconds. So 5% of this cartoon is in this slow motion. Xavier! It is very, very special.
It's
very special.
It's really bizarre. Some of the choices that they've been doing, we haven't talked a lot about it, but some of the wipes and stuff that they've been incorporating in this season are just really weird and bad. And some of the there's a scene in the second episode we're about to get into that it's just they kind of phase shift it almost, they do a weird color shift where it seems like they just slam the contrast down and then right back up to normal again. And I just some of the stuff that they're doing to, I guess, probably take care of these animation problems that they're having is just, some of it looks really bad.
Yeah. So this immediately goes into part 2, which there's much less to talk about. One Man's Worth part 2. Bishop Shard and the alternate present versions of Wolverine and Storm will have one more chance to save Xavier from being killed before he founded the X-Men, if they can survive the alternate future ruled entirely unopposed by Mastermind. And that's kind of the problem, is there's so little of that second bit.
Yep.
If they had to actually do more adventure in the future, I'm cool with that, but that doesn't really happen. So we pick up, on Xavier getting blown up.
Mm-hmm.
And team rushes over, and it's too late. And Bishop's like, "Listen, Wolverine, you fucked up.
This was all your fault. If you had just not fought the racist in 1959, it's 1959, dog. I wasn't fighting the racists. Come on."
Yeah, and I am black. And Wolverine doesn't apologize for shit. Of course. So he, the cafe owner at this point pops up, while they're kind of Bishop and Wolverine are saber rattling, and says "Hey, yeah, those are the guys who fucked up my my bar, and also some of them are black. Go get them." And the cops go to do it, and then we switch back to an alternative future where the gang has gone back to try one more time. I do one more little thing.
Yeah, one less caper. But when they go back into 2055, they find Forge looking drastically different. He's mostly robot now, whereas before he just had a robot leg. Now he is 90% robot, and
I can't even describe how he looks now.
It's
Like-
really bizarre. It's
like-
really weird.
It's not just robot. He's like weird biobot. He looks like one of those fucking Warframes, man. Like it is all like really, really contoured. Like, what if you took a robot and the metal panels were the shape of muscles instead of,
Yeah.
that's what those Warframe things look like to me, and it's why that is so ugly to me. They look like Forge in the future in this thing.
I could see a Forge frame. Like, I could be into a Forge to Warframe. I'm into that.
I don't think I could be into Forge frame. It seems like one thing I like that would then get connected to something I think, like, I don't think this is a good look for Forge. I think it looks bad.
I think you were right to be turned off by that game. Like, I know your taste a little bit from listening to podcasts and talking with you, and like that's not a game like that I think you would really be into at all. So
No, I'm very surprised by how many of my friends are getting into it. Like, just this free to play game from 4 years ago, like that a bunch of people are diving into.
I think it was just like there was a lot of build up for Destiny 2 that a lot of people were kind of turned off by, so they're looking for a drop in and out multiplayer game that you can go around and shoot some dudes and talk to your friends with and have a good time. And like it's scratching that urge more than Destiny 2, because like Destiny 2 was the hangout game or Destiny 1 was like the hangout game for a lot of people, and Destiny 2 looks almost exactly like Destiny 1, so this is something new that you could have a hangout game with. So although what the fuck do I know? I'm playing Dragon's Dogma, so like I don't know anything about video games anymore.
Which also everyone has gotten like into in a weird sudden way, like in this weird, like everyone's kind of switch over. And I have nothing against Dragon's Dogma. Like that's been on my 2 playlists for a long time. Mm-hmm. But it is a weird thing where like all of a sudden, like I know a bunch of people playing through Dragon's Dogma.
Well, that's just because
they decided to play at the same time.
It came out this week on PS4. That's the big thing.
Oh,
there.
That's what it is. Shit.
Yeah. So.
But with the Destiny, was it not like is Destiny 2? I haven't really been following it.
Mm-hmm.
Do people not like Destiny 2? Is it not?
People that like Destiny 1 seem to really like Destiny 2, but it's a lot of the same game from my understanding. And I played the beta. Like I just played like one story mission, and the people that are into it are really into it. But I think that like Destiny 1, it's not different enough for people to go back and spend those kind of hours into, or like the people like CJ and Patty, who are kind of like the biggest voices for Warframe right now, to go back to, because it's just not enough there. So, and this is free and it's fun and it's, weird and quirky and different and kind of janky in a good way. And like, I think next week they're rolling out like an open world component. So it's not even going to be level based anymore, which sounds completely bizarre. So I think it's just it's just kind of the game finally like kind of came into its own for the last 3 or 4 years. And yeah, but man, like if I didn't have like a couple of dudes from the Duckfeed network like hanging out, not from the network, from the Duckfeed Slack, like hanging out with me and like walking me through the beginning part of that game, it's just so fucking overwhelming. Like you pick up.
Yeah, I've heard the tutorializing
it's real
really bad.
Yeah, like and you go in and like you have access to tons of like consumables and like upgrade materials, and all of them have like weird garbage names that don't mean anything, and like you're collecting like 8 different currencies, and like it's all over the place with that stuff. And it's once you get into it, it's fun. Like the default the default frames that they give you aren't very fun, but like I got an ice one, and the ice one's pretty dope. Like I can shoot an ice beam at people and they freeze, and I can shoot their head and they explode, and that's really satisfying. But like it's just one of those games where it's just there's a lot in it, and you can just keep playing it. So, yeah, Dragon's Dogma is fun too.
Yeah, I really want to play Dragon's Dogma. That's actually like on my list. That's a list of things I haven't played that I think I would like. And it's not like I think Destiny 2 looks amazing and Warframe looks bad. Like neither of those designs do a whole lot for me. I just think Warframe looks like weird and not good as far as like the robot designs.
Yeah. I saw you and Allison talking about that on Twitter. Like the aesthetic just doesn't appeal to you, and I can see that. Like
aesthetic's real rough. What I need to do is just mute it. Like I just need to get into my mute filters so I don't have to stop hearing about it, because it's one of those things where it's just like every once in a while I get something. Like it doesn't actually bother me that like people like the design of those robots. It's just like the way that when you have people who are your friends constantly saying something, like there's a conversation going on and it's like it's not. The phrasing I'm looking for is rubbed in my face, but it's not really being rubbed in my face. It's just something I have to see every day. Is someone being like, look how beautiful this is. And it's just a big metal muscles, it's just muscle structure of a human, like a skinless human with metal instead of muscles. I'm like, man, that does not look good. Like I just don't see it. And it's confronting me with it, multiple times a day, every day, so I just need to mute all Warframe talk. So that's the lesson from this episode.
Yeah, is to mute all Warframe chat. But that's something that Twitter
or just
is
mute the stuff that bothers you.
Is really, really weird at nowadays, because it just like I find myself getting mad at stuff, and I'm like, what? Like, it's just people like wanting to enjoy something or wanting to share something. Like, I'm so overdone with this Rick and Morty conversation. Like, I don't even think it's a conversation worth having anymore. And I watch that show a lot. Like, I like that show a lot, but like the fans are ridiculous, and then the people hating on the fans being ridiculous are now getting to the point where that's ridiculous, and it just becomes like this snake eating its own tail. And yeah, dude, I'm like, I saw Josh from Candy Rents the other day. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna have to just mute all Rick and Morty instances because like I just don't care about any of this argument, because it's all dumb. And
the argument's been done. You know, like it is a thing where there's not a whole lot to say about it.
Yeah,
anymore. I just need to remember that I have that tool available to me, because like I also like I never need to hear about PUBG ever again. You know, like I just don't. You know, it's not for me, and I'm not interested. And it's not. You know, I know people are just having fun and just trying to share that, and that's fine. You know, like I don't want to be the person who like pops in and, except for Mario Rabbids, because I'm always gonna be the person who pops in and shits on your Rabbids. But like, other than Rabbids, like I don't want to be the person who's like just like, man, this I think this sucks and I need everyone to know it. But I also don't want to be the person who's constantly having it shoved in their face because it's the one thing everyone's talking about.
Yep.
You know, there's just got to be a way to like peacefully opt out of this stuff.
I saw somebody requesting.
Is it?
I saw somebody requesting the ability to mute stuff to mute phrases that appear in like screenshots taken, so like you don't have to see like screeds of stuff. Like I really wish that was a feature.
I was just texting about that. I just tweeted about that today because I keep seeing memes about the Star Wars trailer, and I didn't know there was a Star Wars trailer, and I was like, how miraculous is that? Like, mutes are amazing, you know. It's just, like, I didn't even have to hear about like, but people keep like throwing around this like screenshot of like, oh, I hope they don't kill Luke. I don't want to see Luke Skywalker die, and I'm like, yeah, it's fucking, you know, Space Wizard TV show. You're going to see Luke Skywalker die. Like, it's the most dramatic thing they could do, and Mark Hamill's 1,000,000 years old. Like,
yeah,
it's going to happen.
They kind of have to kill that dude in order for that series to keep going.
And he's been living for like hundreds of years in the fiction or something like that. Like, I don't know exactly what's going on with him, but like, you know, that's going to happen. And people are just, you know, doing this meme. And again, I get that they just really love, you know, Luke Skywalker. I just don't want to see it. So if I had that image mute, you know, if I had smart enough like tin eye technology to look at things and just like, I don't want to see the font, I don't want to see the name Luke, anything, an image or anything, just erase it from my reality.
Yeah, I don't ever want to see anything Star Wars ever again.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's the compromise. I'm not going to get on your shit. Get rid of all of it.
You probably didn't see it, but I retweeted somebody posting I guess there was a book that came out that was based on, that has like that Poe Dameron guy from the episode 7. And it was him officiating a wedding ceremony. Did you see this tweet going around?
No, I have Poe muted.
You have, yeah.
So no, if anyone talked about Poe in it, it doesn't come up.
I don't know. I'm just going to tell you about it, and I'll link you it later if you want to read the full thing. But apparently, somebody had put fart juice in the whatever shared drink that everybody was going around. So during this wedding ceremony, everybody, including the bride and groom, just start farting all over the place, and like it's treated as like this like pressure release from like being at war or everything. But like the phrase "loud sonorous fart" is used at one point. Like just the most bizarre.
That's real fucking weird.
This is a book about. This is like a book of like from Disney, right? Like this is. I don't understand what's happening in the Star Wars universe, man. I just really don't.
Yeah, that's extremely strange. I do not know. So, well, they come up. So, you know, we'll get back to the episode for people who are not here for this. But it went around for a little while of the clip from Game of Thrones of when like Daenerys like is in the slave pits and she flies away on her dragon, and then when she lands, she just immediately, there's like 2 paragraphs of George R. R. Martin describing her diarrhea. And it's real, like it happens in the book, and it's just like this long scene of just like, what if Daenerys Targaryen, first of her name, the breaker of chains, just like literally had the worst diarrhea that this, you know, this lyrical poetic writer can imagine, you know, and that's going to go in the book. You know, it just like, I don't know what's going on with authors, man. Like I don't like, what has just happened to people who write books who need to do art juice and liquid shits all over their fantasy and sci-fi.
I was a big as as a young teenager, I was really into the Xanth novels by Piers Anthony.
Oh, and, yeah, I think we've talked about that. Me too.
Have we? Yeah. Because I got deep into that series, and then like one of my earliest internet like don't ever get to know your heroes things was finding some sort of excerpt from a book that he wrote. It was a autobiographical thing where he was talking about like getting like graphically describing the enemas that he would get and how it made him a better person or something. And I'm like, I don't want to, like, I was already done. Like, it was already a little creepy, but now I am officially done with all the Xanth novels. Like, I don't need to see any of that stuff at all. What is weird? What is it with weird butt stuff and like fantasy authors, man? That's just so weird.
Yeah. I don't know. And the thing is like all those things are perfectly fine to me. Like, I'm a man who has more than his fair share of diarrhea, probably. I've been known to fart and even to supple upon the fart juice, but I don't write about it. Just like the adding it to the fiction and being like, this has to be part of my space fantasy. This like sonorous fart scene is just very strange to me. That's the part like that I don't get. Piers Anthony goes way deeper than that. Like, not only is he like way into his enemas and stuff, but like those books are sexist.
Oh my
like,
God. Yeah.
Going back to
revisiting that stuff is just, whoa.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And even, this is just Duckfeed, like SJ, fucking Duckfeed, SJWs. But like literally the main character, the main female lead of the first novel is a character, a woman who is ugly when she, smart when she's ugly and beautiful when she's dumb.
Yep.
And it goes with the tides. It's like this period, menstrual cycle metaphor. And like, man, how did this get published? Like, go fuck yourself, Piers Anthony. And like, I say this as somebody who's read the first 20 of those.
I'm probably that deep too, man. Like I remember
like
going
Demons
into like the
Don't
20.
And,
oh yeah. Yep. I remember that.
All that shit.
Jesus. I finally found these pictures, and it's like from this Star Wars book, and it's do you, Snap Wexley, take whoever, I'm not going to try to pronounce the name, to be your before his insides erupted in the most atmosphere ripping flatulence the galaxy ever heard, is the quote.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
When Brian Wade like reads something like that, do you think that he's ever like yes, this is fucking hilarious and good, or do you think that he's just like, I like this except for this?
No, I think it's definitely not. A lot of Brian's appreciation from listening to his podcast a little bit, is mostly comes from like reading it when he was young and kind of getting jazzed about some of the characters.
That's true.
But definitely not like taking it in all in as a whole, because there's a lot of really bad stuff that's in there.
I know. I'm just teasing Brian.
Yeah, I know.
Like, Brian's not an idiot. Like I just wanted to.
But here's the thing about Brian. I wanted to bring up. He's really into farts, so he's probably really into this. Like when he was down here, man, that's all he talked about was just farts. It was really weird. I wasn't really going to say anything. He went on a different podcast called The Salt Report and like said really nice things about me and Autumn, and we're like, oh, they're great people. I had such a great time, but I didn't want to make this public. But it was just like 90% farts, and that was really that was it. That was all he talked about.
When you started talking about his conversation, so it was talked about not like the 90% of the noises that came out of him.
No. If he was farting, he was doing it in like away from us, and we never noticed.
like a gentleman.
Yeah, he was farting like a gentleman. You walk like an Egyptian and fart like a gentleman.
Like a gentleman. What happened when you were young?
This is the longest derail we've ever had on this podcast. How we got to Star Wars farting is really, really fantastic. I love it so much.
Well, let's get back. We're talking about Bishop's like shitty outfit where he's all robot. Mm-hmm. So the big thing with Bishop in the future is that he's all scared and doesn't want to help them because he's like, no, you're part of the resistance. What's that? Like, we all serve Master Mold owns. And it's just like, what? And he's like, yeah, we never even use this time travel machine. We just have it just there in case if I use it, they'll know. And the robots actually show up because they detected our time traveling heroes, and we get into a fight.
Mm-hmm. And these are like enforcers, is what Forge calls them.
Yeah.
And they're basically like souped up sentinels, right? Like they don't have that classic purple and like light purple coloring or anything, but they're more or less just sentinels. And they are kind of fighting them, and they do a pretty good job of taking care of these. Throughout this entire thing, they're trying to convince Forge that they're real people and that he needs to help them and send them back into time for a second shot. Forge, There's never been a resistance. He's never sent anybody back in time. It's not allowed. So this takes a little bit to happen, and finally they do convince him to do it. And after they do it, for the rest of the scene, Wolverine and Bishop just yell at Forge constantly, like, "Are you finished yet? You got to hurry up!" Like,
there's a part where Wolverine literally says, like, "If you don't finish, you're going to become acquainted with these," and like shows his claws or something. Threatens to, like, disembowel Forge for not fixing the time machine fast enough. So, hey kids, don't you want to be like this? It's super weird. So they're doing this. They're making the time machine. Fitzroy reports back to Master Mold at this point, and Master Mold says, like, "Well, you did it, but if Bishop's alive, he's going to time travel and fuck this up. So you have to kill Bishop, to get your thing."
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, after he leaves, Master Mold says, like, "Hey, Nimrod, after Fitzroy kills Bishop, make sure you kill Fitzroy. No more mutants, right?"
There's gotta be a more efficient way to communicate if you're future genocide creating robots in the future.
Yeah, like Wi-Fi.
Yeah, like, can you just like? I can't believe that you had to, like, "Hey, Nimrod, hang back." Like, let them go ahead so that I can whisper this in your robot ear and not just like
tie your robot shoe for a second. Like, yeah. It's super weird, like, that they communicate through voice alone.
Yeah. Like, "Alexa, tell Nimrod to kill Fitzroy."
Would you like me to Google?
I'll probably have to. Do I have to beep that out? Like, or does it not work through podcasts? I don't actually have any of those voice machines, but I know Cole.
I think it does work, but fuck them. Like, if you invited the Amazon spy into your house, you get to have it activated when somebody says Alexa.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, good.
That's part of the price you pay. So, Alexa, Alexa,
buy all of the X-Men trades. So Fitzroy, hearing this, goes back to Bishop and, like, gives Bishop, like, a data log. It's like, "This is going to explain everything. You guys get out of here." And in this ensuing fight, because Enforcers has come back, Forge has managed to get the time travel device working. Storm goes through immediately, but as they're trying to get through, Shard takes a hit, and
this is where Bishop explains who Shard is.
Yeah, well, it's right after this because she has to stay behind, and so him and Wolverine managed to get through, but Shard has to stay behind, and it's pretty heavily implied that Nimrod kills her and Forge, like, at the end. Like, they don't show it, but, like, they showed Nimrod going right up to him, and then, like, the camera smashes back down to Bishop and Wolverine. So
yeah, and Bishop explains who it is, and it's just like, "I wouldn't count the old girl out yet." It's like, well, I don't know. It seems naive.
Well, even she says, like, "If you succeed, then I'm going to be fine. Like, we're just going to be like, everything's going to be cool. You're going to wipe this timeline out. Who cares if I die?"
If not, I'm definitely going to be dead. So no pressure.
Yeah, and then we get to, like, watch this whole cafe altercation again, right? Like, this time that where the racist cafe owner comes over and, like, starts some shit with the most badass looking dudes in the place. But as all of that's going on, like, we see Xavier leave, and Xavier actually walks out and runs right into future Bishop, not the Bishop that's back in the cafe, but actually the current Bishop that just went back in time. And Gary, I like these episodes a lot, and I feel, for the most part, especially for a time travel episode, like, most of the stuff works. But Xavier just kind of pretends like he doesn't know any of this, and I'm like, you literally just read all of these people's minds. Like, the question to ask is not where are you from? It's where's Shard? That's the question you should be asking right now.
Yeah, Xavier is not the best in this.
No.
He's could go along with this, and can also, like, he's got powers and stuff. There's no reason why he can't, like, detect that Fitzroy is there. Like, he could be a player in this, but he doesn't.
No, it's just weird that they have to convince him again, and they even go through, like, they take him back to the place where Fitzroy bombed for some reason, and then, like, make him read their minds again for him to confirm that it's true. And that's, I'm like, didn't you guys just do this? But it's a minor complaint in a weird time travel episode, so I'll let it go. When he does read everybody's minds, he says that one of them, one of the three, Bishop, Wolverine, or Storm, doesn't want the mission to succeed. And Bishop immediately turns to Wolverine and says, like, you traitor. And I like this because Wolverine's like, just because I have my own personal beliefs doesn't mean I'm going to let him get in the way of the mission. And because he knows if he succeeds, it's going to wipe out this timeline with him and Storm. And right now, Storm is the love of his life. So yeah, he kind of is hoping that it doesn't work out, which is a neat moment. But also not letting that get in the way of like saving the world, which is the thing that Wolverine wants to do, and that's really cool.
Yeah, he's conflicted, in a way that I appreciate quite a bit.
And then Nimrod.
Cindy shows up. Well, Cindy shows up as Nimrod. Cindy was the other lady that was hanging out with Xavier and talking about evolution. And it's like, Wolverine sniffs him or somebody psychically detects him or something. It turns out it's Nimrod. They fight Nimrod. Again, that's a losing game. Nimrod always reforms. Bishop actually blows him up, but Fitzroy gets the drop on him and traps them in like a force field. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you're in a bomb in this force field with a bomb inside. You're going to get fucked over. And then they show him the PowerPoint that Fitzroy in the future made, saying like, "Hey, don't blow everybody up because you're just going to get blown up. You're going to get betrayed. So everyone's going to die, including Bantam." And then Bantam is like,
Destroy Bantam? Not a good idea!
And I know who Bantam is and why he's there. Because of
I don't.
Comics and stuff.
I have no idea.
Just imagining like you or any kid watching this and just being like, what the fuck is up with this chubby little butler that just comes out and doesn't do anything?
Somebody
who is this progeria baby?
Somebody on Twitter said it was like a Fantastic Four villain or something, or like a character from the Fantastic Four universe. But I don't know this guy at all. Yeah,
he definitely hung out with Fitzroy. He might have originally showed up as a Fantastic Four character, but like Bantam was definitely a Fitzroy guy because he always had this weird little goblin with him. And these are the two episodes you watched, I think, when I said like, when you thought these were the beginning of the episode. Bishop ends up in the time stream with a much more like an interdimensional imp. Like not Bantam. Bishop has another weird little goblin that shows up later. So we're not done. It's not Bantam. There's another weird little goblin that is the most annoying character in this cartoon. So we got that to look forward to.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
So Fitzroy helps him. And Fitzroy, for some reason, decides to knock out Xavier to get his time travel juice.
I love this.
Like
he's just like, sorry, bro. I was here to kill you. I'm not going to do that, but I'm still going to knock you out for a couple of days. It's really good.
And then in a really good scene, Wolverine and Storm from the future, where they're married, say like, hey, that erased the timeline. How long do we have? Why haven't we disappeared? Bishop says, hey, as long as you have those, temporal transducers or whatever on your wrist, like you'll be okay. And how long do they last? Like a couple days, like they got a little juice in them, like you guys will survive, but then you'll disappear. And instead of just waiting for themselves to slowly fade out, they embrace and kiss and then turn off each other's armbands, and kind of commit this like dual suicide, making sure that they, no longer exist, like, which is a very like romantic and sweet kind of moment.
It is. It's really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This I'm hardcore shipping Wolverine and Storm right now from this timeline. Yeah. Like I'm into it. Like I want to see these two. I mean, they don't like as soon as they take off this thing, they go back to the picnic where Wolverine cracks his joke about the ants again, and like they kind of have like some casual flirtation. Where a very creepy Xavier watches from afar and is like, "We'll never know."
Yeah.
And like I guess Xavier remembers all of this stuff. Like
Xavier remembers. Like that's the idea, is that he's seen them as like the couple and stuff, but has just kind of left it.
Which is just more evidence that Xavier is definitely just like a working, like people can be working alcoholics, like functional alcoholics. He's a functioning insane person. Like if he knows the next 100 years of future and then he goes to form the X-Men, like that is just crazy. Like there's no way that he can handle that kind of stress.
Yeah. Yep. So very nice ending. There's way too much. We had that entire racist bar fight again. Mm-hmm. We have a lot, and for like this is some pretty complicated time travel shit. I think we deal with, if you include the implied time that Bishop and Shard come from at all, like we're dealing with like 4 or 5 different timelines in this one. Like I think it manages it pretty well. I think that the real like coolness in these 2 episodes is the weird alternate future where everything has gone to shit, like a new take on a dystopia.
Yeah, this is really good, and like the 2 episodes, like they work as a story, and I think that's something that sometimes these multi-episode arcs don't really do very well. But these 2 are really, really great, and what the show does extremely well, Ed, is getting across the designs from the comic books, and I can't get enough of it. Like anytime we see, like I talked about it with Beast, like having his cool Age of Apocalypse outfit, like that looked dope as hell. I like how Mr. Sinister, his outfit did not change at all because he's just a sinister asshole, right? Like he's already like kind of a badass. But I love all of this stuff. It works really, really well.
Yeah. So pretty good set of episodes. I dig them. And dealing with just, it's inconsequential in the way that time travel stories like always end up being kind of undone. But they will end up, like, the fact that Bishop has spent all his time traveling through time is, I think, what puts him into the weird time warp for later. I could be wrong about that, but I think that. So there will still be kind of repercussions coming from this.
Cool.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to this. We will be back in 2 weeks. We are cruising through season 4. So if you have prompts, questions, things like that, hit us up at duckfeed.tv/contact and share those with us, and we will save them for a thing. We haven't talked about which movie we're going to do at the end of this one. We got several options, so we'll figure it out.
Yeah. If you're trying to keep up with the show because the schedule's all crazy, go to daysoffuturecast.com/schedule. I've got the episodes that we're going to cover on each podcast all outlined for you. So next week it's going to be in 2 weeks it's going to be Proteus Part 1 and Proteus Part 2, which I'm only reading like the first 10 words of each description and they look ridiculous. So that should be really fun. And I'm really excited to cover those. And then
it sounded like you said instead of Proteus, it sounded like you said Parodius, which is like that series of shooting games where you play a little guy that it's like so we're not going to be covering those games. I don't think. Sorry, those are not those are not continuity by a stretch.
And I do want to call out that our first episode in December is going to include "Have Yourself a More Like Little Christmas" or "Little Xmas."
The timing is so good.
I know, man. That could not have worked out better. So, I mean, we have episodes coming out closer to Christmas, but like just our first December episode is going to be a solid hit, I think. daysoffuturecast.com/schedule for all of that, and then ratings, reviews on iTunes, patreon.com/duckfeed.tv if you want to support the show directly. And thank you everybody for listening. That's the most important part. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks everybody, and we'll see you guys in about 2 weeks.